Hey everyone, you're listening to Party Time, My Golf Story with Kevin Walsh and whatever special guest he has today. You can check me out on episode 9 of the podcast. Today I'm wearing Grayson clothes while I'm out practicing because I believe in look good, play good. And follow me on Instagram, Sophia Warren Golf, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers. And the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com. Now here's your host, Kevin Walsh.
Hey everyone, welcome to the program. We have a return guest, Stephen Arnold, PGA professional at Longbow Key Club, also spent some time in Colorado at Red Sky Golf Club, is back for more. He's going to recap what was, to me, like the longest day in golf. I know people talk about that usually, the U.S. Open sectional qualifier, the 36 holes day that you see on Golf Channel and everything, but there's some other things that are similar but a little bit different. And he played 1 million holes in one day. All right, not 1 million holes, but a lot of holes, and he did it for a good reason. We talked about that the last time. We're going to recap what he did, the money that he raised for it, and how he felt afterwards. Because I think after a day like that, maybe he could have used a day at BioLit Spa in downtown Sarasota. BioLit Spa is one of our sponsors here on Party Time, My Golf Story. So if you're all tired after a day of playing golf or 1 million holes like Stephen Arnold did that one time for a great cause, by the way, go to BioLit Spa. Get yourself a cold water plunge, red light therapy, a massage. Take good care of yourself. Take care of the body. Take care of the golf game. Hey, before we go any further, if you're not a subscriber yet, would you please do so? Would you hit that subscribe button and leave a 5-star review? Because that matters for the algorithms. That matters to our sponsors. And it's just a part of it. You probably hear that on 1 million other podcasts. There's a reason for it. We need your help with that. And if you've been a long-time subscriber, really appreciate that. Tell a friend about the podcast, leave some comments, and just enjoy the programming that we have for you. Big thanks to our title sponsor, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, and beer's not for you anymore because you feel bloated after you have a couple, hard to swing that way, or you're sick of hard seltzers that you pretend taste good, just like you pretend yogurt tastes good, try the real deal. Try a Party for golfers by golfers. It makes all the difference. And if you don't have Party where you play golf, then make sure you get in contact with Paradise Craft Distributors, the exclusive distributor of Party across the state of Florida and also available in New England. Party's got you covered. And if golf real estate is in your future, folks, it's a great time to buy. It is a buyer's market. There's availability at Lakewood National Golf Club, where this podcast originates from. And there's nobody better than the golf real estate pros of Vince Vizzacaro, Gene Walsh, and Samantha Walsh from suncoastdreams.com. They can take care of you at Lakewood National and in the greater Sarasota area. All right, so enough of that. Let's bring the man back, Stephen Arnold. It's been a couple of months. So let's rehash what was when we last spoke in the fall. You were getting ready for an epic day of golf. What was it? What did you do? And how did you feel afterwards?
So I did, the goal was 100 holes of golf in one day back on December 4th at Longbow Key Club. And it was all to raise money for the First 1,000 Days initiative, which provides services for families throughout our area to help with parents and create better outcomes for kids in the first 1,000 days of life. So I had people pledge money per hole that donated flat, but they supported the fundraising effort, and it went really, really well. I think in total there was like 140 donations that totaled $57,000. And then the Barancic Foundation matched that dollar for dollar. So it raised a little over $114,000 for the day. It was, so it was a really successful event.
Okay. That's great. How did you feel afterwards?
So I had a lot of people that pledged, want to make it interesting. They said, oh, we'll pledge for birdie. We'll pledge for score, whatever it was going to be. So I had to actually try for all 100 holes. And mentally, I was exhausted. By the end of the day, I was so fried the last kind of 10, 15 holes where it's just like I just was done being able to think through golf shots. And thankfully, it was a reasonably nice day, but there was some wind and all the other stuff. Mentally, I was drained. Physically, I felt all right. My hands hurt for like a week and a half. My hands were the worst part.
Walk me through this because, how good was your golf? Did you play some good golf?
So I played 100 holes. I made 20 birdies, 14 bogeys, and 2 doubles. I was 2 under par for the day.
That's pretty good. And you mentioned the wind briefly. Wind wipes you out like nothing else, right?
It's exhausting.
And you don't always, I mean, probably by hole 90, you just said you were exhausted mentally, but what was it like when you walked off the golf course and so you didn't have the wind whipping through your ears and you got in the car and maybe it was silent? Was that when it hit you like, oh my God, I'm so damn tired?
No, I kind of got done and it was really cool because I had a member at the club play every 9 holes with me. So one member would play with me for each 9. As soon as I got done, they would kind of head off and a new member would jump in and we'd play 9 holes. And having somebody else to play with and kind of talking and doing those things, I felt really good. And then I got done. I was talking to some people when I got done driving back, and my wife and the kids were out of town when I did it. And I got home and I started kind of like making dinner and getting stuff done around the house. And I sat down, and the moment I sat down, I'm like, oh God, I'm done. And the thought of getting back up to start walking up the stairs was like, I think I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to sit here for like 20 minutes and not move. And then when I went to stand up, that's when everything hurt.
That's how I feel after I caddy 36 holes. I always do it because I like the grind, right? I like the physicality of it. But once I sit down, it's all over. I'm not moving after it, but I appreciate all that. And so I wanted to talk to you about, like, you had the idea because you and I sometimes talk about what would be good things to talk about. And you talked about putting the time in, practicing, and just feeling like you hit a wall with improvement. How often does this happen to your students? It happens to me. So I'm listening. I'm trying to pick you for some information. How do we get over that hump when we just don't feel like we're making the improvements that we should?
So I think this is most golfers, right? Most golfers will see improvement in some area, but they tend to reach their ceiling or their threshold really quickly. And knowing how to continue to progress long-term is really, really challenging. I think part of it is knowing how to practice. Another part is how to measure your performance and your improvement. Because as you start to get better, like if you're going from a new golfer to playing golf, you're going to see fairly big leaps and bounds as you start to develop some awareness of skill and the ability to hit the golf ball. So you're going to see this big jump early on of like, oh, okay, like I couldn't hit the ball, now I can. Then I couldn't finish a hole and now I can finish a hole. And then it starts to get harder and harder as we start to progress. But once you start getting down into that, I don't know, even kind of 15 handicap range, starting to reduce scoring gets trickier and trickier and trickier because you're not going to find low-hanging fruit to the same degree you would as someone that was at a higher handicap or just starting the game. So I think what happens for golfers is we get really, really discouraged. So let's say you're we'll call it a bogey golfer, and you don't drive it great, you don't hit your irons great, you chip it fine, okay, and you're getting 2-putt. So you spend all this time, or you're playing a standard hole, you hit a weak drive into the rough, you hit something up 30 yards from the green, you get the ball in the green, you 2-putt, you make a bogey. So you spend all this time working and working and working, and you're working on your ball striking, and now you hit a good drive, it's in the fairway, you're a lot closer to the green. You hit a much better approach shot, you're 50 feet away on the green or just in the fringe, you're able to putt, and now because you're 50 feet away, you 3-putt. You've still made a bogey, even though you've massively improved, right? So improving scoring is an incredibly challenging ask because it requires gains in every part of the game at some point. And I think that's where players get discouraged. And then what happens is they start searching for things and they don't know what they're doing. And then they go down the wrong road and actually get worse. So when you're starting to put the time in and you're starting to figure out, oh, how do I get better? The first thing you need to figure out is, where can I actually get better? What area of the game? And then within those areas, you would look at different subsets. So if we're talking about driving, is it technical? Is it contact related? Is it control over face and path for curve? Where am I lacking? Where are my deficiencies? Where can I improve? How do I measure that improvement? And then how do I work through that process? And the term that I hear golfers use all the time is like, oh, I just have to hit a ton of balls and develop muscle memory. And I think that concept is so detrimental because, for lack of a better way of saying it, muscles don't have memory. Right? Skill is not derived from the repetition, just the repetitious action itself of hitting golf balls, right? When we look at skill and skill acquisition, that is found in the brain through kind of the creation of neural networks. So whenever you're doing a task and you're thinking your way through it, your brain is telling your body what to do, right? And your body is trying to respond to the cues it's given and kind of create the result you're looking for. And then we learn and we build on those networks and our body responds better. So when we're going through practice, if we're not going through kind of a deeper state of practice, a more thoughtful state of practice, you can put in a ton of time and see very, very little reward. And if you kind of blend the combination of frustration between how hard it is to actually shoot lower scores with the feeling that the time and the effort that I'm putting in, I'm not seeing any sort of measurable results, that's when we start to get really, really challenged and frustrated. So if we're talking about improvement, it's a kind of a multi-pronged conversation, both on how are we measuring it, what are we trying to improve, what are the outcomes, and then how do we actually do it?
How do you uncover this, though? My guess, if I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong, because I'm wrong a lot. Your student comes to you, and I mean, do you start with a conversation like, "What are you working on?" Is the conversation had before they get to the lesson tee, and then you devise a plan there, or you try and get ahead of it with a conversation before they even get to the lesson tee?
So there's always going to be an initial conversation. And the initial conversation is kind of unpacking where a student is. So, okay, what is your handicap? What are you shooting? How much are you practicing? What are you doing when you practice? And then the big one, the follow-up with that is, okay, what are your goals? And when we talk about the goals, I would like them to be measurable. Is the goal a reduction in handicap? Is the goal a reduction in scoring average? And those would be two very different things. Is the goal, I've had students come to say to me that I just want to hit the ball more solidly, more regularly. I actually don't care if I score better. I just want to feel like I'm hitting the golf ball better. Then once we understand, okay, here's where you're at, here's what the goals are. Now we'll get into kind of the assessment phase of watching them hit balls, or watching them chip, or watching them putt, or whatever the area of focus is going to be. And the thing that I'm doing most of the time early on when this is occurring is asking them questions. And most of the questions are tied to, why do you think what's happening is happening? What do you think is causing this? What is the interaction between the club and the ball that's going on to create the shot that you just hit? And typically when I ask the question of let's say player hits a low, thin shot or a top, and I say, what do you think just happened? Asking about the relationship between what happened to the club and the golf ball to cause that shot. Their typical reaction is, or their typical answer is, the 6 things they think they did wrong, with absolutely no answer relating to why did the ball do what it did, right? So if we thinned it, or topped it, the leading edge of the golf club had to have hit above the equator of the golf ball. So the club either bottomed out too soon and rose up and went over the golf ball. The low point could have been in a reasonable place, but the arc itself was too high. Either way, the club has to get down more and the arc has to get more forward so that we're making cleaner strike. Most players just say the 9 things they think they did wrong with no attempt to, let's say, address them other than trying not to do them. So there's no way of actually moving forward. So it's like if the player will top it, they'll say something along the lines of, I pulled my head up. Okay, great. Now what do we do? Don't pull my head up. Okay, so what is the action that you're going to create? So trying to help them assess and understand what occurred allows us to start to go through kind of the assessment process for them so they can understand why the ball is doing what it's doing, how they can start to change it. And now we can kind of start to get into more thoughtful, deeper practice that lets us assess things better.
When it comes to practice itself, after a lesson, I've heard this term. You've probably heard it too. Practice perfectly. Sounds great. There's no perfect in golf. But to me, what that means is have a plan and execute the plan and just enough of it. What would your advice be to somebody just had a couple lessons with you or just one lesson with you, and then they want to go about applying things? What would be the game plan for when they go to the range, the chipping area on their own?
So I think what you said was really good there. And it's not the practice perfectly side, but it's have the plan when you're going to practice. So if we have a lesson or you have a lesson with an instructor and you focus on technical work and you say, okay, well, we're trying to shallow out my swing plane and create better dynamic loft at impact. I'm doing technical drills A, B, and C to work through that plan. I'm going to go to the range, and for the next week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm going to go to the range and I'm going to do technical work, doing my drills, trying to ingrain this pattern, go through it thoughtfully, make sure when I'm hitting these shots, I am assessing, did I do it correctly? What did it feel like? All of that kind of stuff. Now, if the goal was technical, if we're trying to change the pattern of the golf swing, then the goal is not to hit good golf shots. The goal is to change that pattern, get a feel for how we're trying to move, start to be able to do it more and more autonomously. And when I'm looking at a student and we're talking about whatever they're working on, I break practice into 3 categories: technical, skill, or performance, right? So if the goal is to work on the technique, then that is the objective. The goal would be to change swing path, face orientation, things along those lines. And we're going to do drill work to try and get ourselves accustomed to the feel of what we're trying to do. When you're trying to do those things, that's where the sole focus is going to be. So if you're doing that sort of work, then it's going to be pretty hard to make good contact, hit the ball well, hit good golf shots. So a lot of that work, what I would be kind of describing as, when you go do this, we're going to do it slowly. We're going to do it very deliberately. We're going to get feedback. We're going to know what we're looking for. If we were doing skill-based work and we were talking about contact control or face path control, trying to create consistent shot shapes, there would be very specific games, challenges, exercises to work on the skill itself, thinking far less about the technique. And then the final side of that would be performance work, where I'm going to test my ability to do that in some sort of measured scenario where I care about the result, whether it's a game that you have to complete a certain amount of objectives before you're done to apply pressure, or where I'm going to measure how many times out of 10 I can hit a specific green or create the same ball flight. I'm going to do things that start to test your ability to do the things that we've worked on. That's either going to let you kind of learn, when I apply pressure, does this hold up? Or if I'm doing it and it's not holding up, what is breaking down and what are the adjustments that I need to go work on?
Do you like applying pressure? Like the guy that will not leave the practice putting green until he's made 10 straight 5-6 footers? Or do you like more of a fun thing to kind of get to the end goal?
So it depends where the student's at, right? So at some point, if the goal is to shoot lower scores, we're going to have to perform. And when you on the golf course, when you're trying to score, when you're playing, whether that be with friends in a men's or women's group at the club, or club championship, or tournament golf, the higher level you're trying to play to, and a format where you're keeping score and you're going to post it and you care about the outcome, there's just going to be more pressure involved, whether that, however you want to phrase that, whether it's self-imposed, all of it, it's going to matter more to you. So if we don't apply some pressure to our practice, we're never really going to know how our swing and our skills are going to maintain. So I do like a lot of game sort of play. I like exercises that challenge us to complete a task. And you're either going to complete the task, or you're going to figure out, like, okay, I do this. Why can't I do this? Let's go solve that problem. And then once I know I can do it, now I kind of own it. So if a player is working on technique and the focus is currently technical, I'm not going to put the practice under pressure, because that's not the objective right now. At certain points, though, we need to start to test the skill to see if it can maintain. And it's one of those things, if you are a club golfer and you're going to play the member guest, and this is where you see all sorts of craziness, is when a player, let's say, wins their flight and they're in the shootout of their member guest, and now there's 100 people watching them, and they've never hit a shot in front of other people, and now we are in full panic mode. And if you don't trust your skill in that scenario, you will see really embarrassing shots that people like, and then they don't want to be there again. And it's not to say that every player is going to need some practice like a tour player, but like, if you're going to be competing and you don't want to fail under pressure, the only way to do that is to apply pressure and see how we do. And it's like, most of the lessons I learned about my golf swing came from failing in tournaments down the stretch. And then you have to go back and unpack why it broke down. Why did the swing break down? What happened? What did I feel? And then you come up with a scenario. But if you don't put that practice under pressure, the next time you get in that scenario, you're just hoping it maintains, right? So the more you can put that into your practice regimen, the more you feel like you're kind of tested as you go. And I think there's a lot of commonalities when you look at other teams, right? Other sporting events or sports. When you look at some of the great teams and you talk about whatever, being a football team, and when you've got let's say you've got an NFL team and they've got a really, really amazing defense. Like, you look at the 2000 Ravens. Well, the Ravens offense practicing against the Ravens defense in the 2000s would have been the hardest thing they were going to face all year. So every game gets easier because it's like, hey, in practice, we play the best defense that we're ever going to see. So everything, once they get into the actual event, gets easier. Well, if I can make practice as stressful as possible, now playing golf is the joy, right? Where I think most people are like, oh, I don't have it today, I can't wait to go back and practice. Like, well, no, the playing is the part where we're supposed to enjoy it. The practice is the part that's supposed to be hard. Practice is where we learn. Practice is where we grow. Practice is where we compete and put things under pressure so that we can then show those skills off when we go play.
No pain, no gain. I'm a big fan of some pressure. Some people respond to it. Some people fold under pressure, but you got to put yourself in those situations, whether it's a money game with your buddies, whether it's something you do yourself. Like, I won't leave the putting green until I make like a quality slick left to right 6-footer that I just pured in the hole. And I might miss a couple of those, but I'm not leaving till I make it. And that kind of puts the pressure on me. So when you're putting in the time and when you hit a plateau, I suppose you'll know it when it happens. You talked about the big leaps and gains that people can make early on because their runway is a lot longer. But I would imagine when you kind of get like you're getting close to single digits and everything, how will you know, aside from your score, and then is that the time to pick up the phone and call you and talk it through? Has that been your experience?
So I think as you start getting lower and lower in handicap, you're not going to find like full shots or plus in any one thing that you're going to gain. Typically, you're going to gain like tenths of a shot or 5/10 of a shot in different areas. And this is where stat tracking to me is so important. So if I have a player that's very, very serious about their game, their scoring, one of the first questions is, all right, what are we using to keep track of your stats? I love Arcos. I think Arcos is an amazing tool because one, it's easy to use, right? So a lot of the stat tracking apps you have to go in and manually input the data. There's more and more now that are good at tracking your shots, but Arcos is going to track you around the golf course. It's going to see all your shots. It's going to give you proximity to the hole. It's going to give you driving distance and all that kind of stuff. And then if I'm looking at the Arcos data, now what I can say is, okay, so if I'm a 10 handicap and I want to get down to a 6, I can compare my stats in each area to that of a 6 handicap. So it'll break it down at all 4 categories: driving, approach, play, short game, putting. And it will give you a strokes gain value relative to the handicap that you're trying to get to. So you might find that you're minus 1.7 strokes per round in driving, your 0.6 strokes better than a 6 handicap in approach, you're minus 3.5 in chipping, and you're whatever, a 1 in putting. Well, now you start to figure out, okay, so these are the 2 areas where I can gain the most. And then where am I losing it? Is it distance? Is it accuracy? What is what I'm missing that's going to allow me to shoot these lower scores? So now your practice can start to get more and more specific, where if we were to look at it and say, okay, when I was playing, I would track my stats and say, okay, I'm minus versus a tour player, minus 3.7 strokes gained in approach play. And then I'd look at it by yardage category. So from 50 to 75, how am I? From 75 to 100. And when I looked at mine, I was always kind of surprised, where from 150 to 200, I was kind of right on par, kind of 0, maybe even positive on strokes gained and approach. But from 100 to 150 yards, my proximity to the hole, my green and reg percent were nowhere near good enough. Well, now, all right, now I can go look at that and say, if I really want to improve, I've got to drastically improve in 100 to 150 in proximity. Then it's my job to figure out, okay, how do I improve that? Do I not have enough control over distance? Is my ball flight control not good enough? And can I not control the shape? Where does the work need to be? So we can get really specific and really intentional about how you're going to practice, what you're going to practice on. And then by using the stat tracking, if I was minus 3.7 and I'm playing and I've got a few rounds and I go to minus 2.9, well, that's improvement. It's going in the right direction. I know what I'm working on has been positive and I need to keep doing it. Because I think for so many players, if you think about the handicap system and you think about scoring, your handicap is only your best 8 rounds out of 20. So these numbers will be wrong. So I apologize for that. But let's just say you shoot 8 rounds of 72 and the course rating's 72 and you're a scratch golfer because your best 8 rounds are all kind of scratch. But your other 12 rounds are 83, right? So your good is good, your bad is way worse. So you work on ball flight control, consistent shot patterns, things like that, and your low scores don't change. Still keep shooting 72 on your good days, but now your 12 bad rounds are all 74 to 76. You've gotten significantly better as a golfer, but your handicap hasn't changed one iota. So monitoring improvement off handicap alone is a really, really challenging aspect, because you have to shoot better good scores, where your scoring average is going to be more attuned to how am I as a player, right? If I'm a scratch golfer, you could be a scratch golfer with a 78 scoring average or a scratch golfer with a 73 scoring average, right? Because the good is still the same. So having ways to measure in smaller detail both improvement and progress, I think starts to help us in the long run. Like, so if I'm going to go on a diet and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to weigh myself, right? And if I'm 250 pounds and my goal is to get down to 200, that's a huge ask, right? But if I'm looking at the scale and the goal is like, okay, let's try and lose whatever, 3 pounds a week, 4 pounds a week, and I'm monitoring the progress and it keeps going in the right direction, I can stick with it. Then the next thing I know, 10 months later, I'm down 30, 40 pounds and I've almost reached my goal. I think so many members put the overarching goal as the only thing that matters. And if I'm not there, I've failed. And the process to get there is much longer than most of them anticipate.
And I think the mentioning of tracking your numbers and really pinpointing this is where the biggest improvements can be made is critical, because otherwise you're not focusing on the right thing. And I would guess some golfers think this is how I improve, but the numbers say otherwise, and trust the numbers. Stephen Arnold is our guest here. He's a golf professional at Longbow Key Club in the greater Sarasota area, and also at Red Sky Golf Club, and also a graduate of Villanova University. I got to ask you, I know you've seen the video because I sent it to you. Boban is serving at basketball, 7'4" guy in the student section at the Villanova game against Marquette just a couple of days prior to our recording. What'd you make of that? And if you were in school and somebody like Boban showed up, like, what would your reaction have been?
When I was in college?
Yeah.
If I was in college and I saw Boban show up, I would have thought it was nuts. I would have thought it was the coolest thing ever. I think there's whatever. College athletics, like when you're in college, you care so deeply about the school and your program and a team and all of that stuff. When you see, like, we'll just call it celebrities or outsiders sharing the same interest as you, I think it's like the coolest thing in the world, right? Like, I think about it with like the Eagles, and when you watch the Eagles and you see like Bradley Cooper on the sidelines, you're like, that's awesome. He likes the same team I do. There's something about it that's just fun. And if I see Boban in the stands and I'm a Villanova kid, I'm going to laugh and try and party along with him and enjoy seeing him at the game.
Good for you. I would do the same. And I just, the fact that it's Boban and the way he looks, 7'4", he just has a look. And then he had the ridiculous chain around his neck and he's all swagged out. And Jay Wright totally set that up, by the way. And he publicized it, but it was a good thing. So wrapping things up here, Stephen, so for somebody that's going out and they're a little bit stuck and they can't get in for a lesson, is there a quick Band-Aid that maybe they can just quick fix that, would be helpful to them?
So one of my favorite exercises is an exercise I stole from Dr. Brett McCabe, who's a sports psychologist. And he does this game called the obstacle course. And the way he does it is designed for tour players. I modify it for kind of club and recreational golfers. And basically what I have them do is I have them hit their driver, a fairway wood, a long iron or hybrid, a mid iron, a short iron, a wedge. And they're going to hit 10 balls with each club. And you're going to set parameters, right? So with driver, if you're on the range, you're going to pick a fairway. You're going to put, okay, here's my right flag. Here's my left flag. I've got to keep it in between those two. And I'm going to hit 10 shots. And I've got to hit it. When I have them measure it, I measure it as either good, acceptable, or unacceptable. So when a good shot would obviously be, it was hit solid. It had the shape I wanted. It was in the fairway. It was great. Acceptable shot would be inside the target window and struck reasonably well, right? So it wasn't a perfect shot, but it'd be fine on the golf course. So when you're doing this and you hit those shots and you do 10 drivers and you do 10 fairway woods and long irons and mid irons and short irons and wedges, you'll change the tolerance for each one, right? So the driver would obviously be kind of the width of a hole. So from in between the junk on the right to the junk on the left. And then as you get to wedges, you might be picking a green and trying to hit the green, and see how well you do out of 10 shots, right? Because I think a lot of the time you'll hear a player, they'll hit a good shot. They're like, oh, that was really good. I just want to do that again. It's like, well, that's kind of what golf is testing us. Can you do it with a high degree of regularity? So if you hit, let's say 10 drivers and 3 of them are good and 4 are acceptable, and the other 3 are unacceptable. Well, we're at 70% success rate. I'm going to tend to see that number start to drop when we get on the golf course because of the stress and the environment and all that kind of stuff. So we start looking at that going, all right, well, like 3 out of every 10 drivers I hit aren't acceptable. They're out of play. They're not hit solid. They're just really bad. I can work on this to try and get it better. It starts to set our expectations when we go play. It starts to let us, and then this exercise starts to let us monitor progress. If you are like 100% success rate and then you go on the golf course and you're 50, then we've got to look at the way you're thinking on the golf course, because something's obviously not allowing you to execute to that level when you play. But it's a good way of practice, right? It's a good way to test your skills. And then it's a good way to monitor progress. So if I was 50% successful with my fairway wood, and then I go back and I do contact work or technical work or whatever work I'm going to do, and I come back a week later, test it again. If I got to 60 or 70%, all right, all of a sudden it's going in the right direction. I'm getting better. I'm hitting more good shots, less bad ones. I'm going in the right direction. So that's a good kind of, it's 60 shots. It's a lot of golf balls. It's going to test your focus. It's going to, but it's going to let you see where you're at. And it's going to see where you can improve. If you're 10 for 10 on drivers and they're all good, and you're 4 for 10 on 7 irons, then if you're looking at your next practice session, it shouldn't be an all driver session. It should be a lot of 7 irons, trying to work on contact control or ball flight control in your iron play. Because if all of your drivers are good, then you just need maintenance in that side. And if you're spending more of your time doing driver, you're kind of not getting the return on investment that you would want.
Attention to detail. I don't think there's any way around that. Just pay attention to the details, work it through, and come see you. Stephen, always good to catch up with you. We still got to play golf. I want to crack at that Big Mike Fasaki guy. He's still playing good golf. I know he's still winning stuff.
He won 2 weeks ago in the West Florida.
I mean, I thought he was dialing down the competitive side, but I don't know. I don't think so. Big Mike is Big Mike, legend among us. Hey, thank you for the time. Appreciate all that you do for the game of golf, and seriously, let's get on the golf course. You could probably use a little playtime yourself instead of doing lessons.
I haven't played since the 100 holes.
I don't blame you. After that, man, I'd probably take a couple months off as well. But I imagine you're starting to get that itch a little bit. So
I'd love to play. It's just not happening right now.
Okay. I understand. Stephen Arnold has been our guest here on Party Time. He is a golf professional at Longboat Key Club and also Red Sky. You can follow him at StephenArnoldGolf.com. Big thanks to our title sponsor, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try a Party. If you're tired after 100 holes of golf, if you do such a thing like Stephen did, go to BioLit Spa and recharge yourself. And if golf real estate is in your plans in the future, nobody better than the golf real estate pros at suncoastdreams.com. Vince Vizzacaro, Gene Walsh, and Samantha Walsh. For Stephen Arnold, I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you again next time on Party Time, My Golf Story.
You've been listening to It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers, and the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com or call 941-220-4000.